live. Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom is back and welcome to a brand new series which I'm very excited to show to you guys, and it's called Underrated, Overrated, or Rightly Rated. And that basically means I'm going to take every legendary in the game, including price cars, and I'm going to give you my personal opinion on whether I think a car is worthy of its RQ. I feel like maybe it's, overrated for its RQ or underrated for its RQ. I think it's very self-explanatory. Now, before we get straight into the video, because this is going to be a pretty long, well, not too long of a series, but the video might be pretty long if I talk about each car for too long, because there are over 50 cars in this, and this is only covering 2 RQs out of all the legendaries, and the legendaries obviously span from RQ80 to 100. I want to show you how the judging process is going to play out, okay? So the first thing I want to show you right now is this little image over here. So as you can see, I'm comparing to what I believe are, pretty decent RQ80s against 2 very strong RQ79s, and as you can see over here, these 2 79s below these 2 legendaries out of the water. So the Audi is kind of known as a little bit of a dragster just because the MRA is very strong, and the handling isn't very good for an RQ80, and the Farbout is also known as a dragster for the Epic, and then obviously the Zonda is known as a hybrid kind of car, and the Ginetta is also known as a hybrid kind of car. So I'm comparing these 2 together, and as you can see, the Audi and the Pagani, they literally lose to the Farbout and the Ginetta everywhere. The Ginetta is the better option on the Twisty compared to the Zonda, and of course the Audi as well, and the Farbout is the better option on the drag, and it's it's better than the Zonda and the Audi. So it might make you think, oh, okay, since that the Farbout and the Ginetta are better than both the legendaries over here, then obviously the Zonda and the Audi are both underrated. And I'm gonna try my best to rate each and every single legendary you see here fully upgraded in their best kind of upgrade position, I guess, upgrade stat, like 233, 322, all that kind of stuff. As you can see, this image makes the Pagani and Audi look very underpowered, but the thing is, this isn't a fair comparison because I'm trying to compare 2 RQ80s, which I believe are worthy of being RQ80, against 2 RQ79s, which are very clearly underrated. The Ginetta and Farbout are Blossom choice for a reason. They hit way above their ranks, so I think it's more fair if I were to compare the Audi R8 and the Pagani Zonda S to 2 RQ79s that I believe deserve to be RQ79s. So I put it up against the Rezvani and the Audi R8 rear-wheel drive, and as you can see, the Audi R8 rear-wheel drive kind of is what I believe is a decent RQ79 hybrid car, and it loses everywhere to the Zonda where it's relevant in the twistier stuff. So as you can see, the Zonda maintains its place as an RQ80. It is able to beat what I believe is a deserved RQ79 car, if that makes sense. Different story for the Audi R8 though. The Audi R8, yes, it wins the half mile, the 1 mile, 150 and 170, but it's kind of trading blows with the Rezvani Beast Alpha. The Rezvani, not even being the best RQ79 dragster out there, I just think that this is worthy of being an RQ79 dragster, is able to beat a max Audi R8 in the quarter mile, the 0 to 100, the 0 to 120, and the hill climb, so they're kind of trading blows. So this way you can see that the Audi R8 is a little bit underpowered. And how often will you see a maxed out Audi R8 RWS, whatever that means? Not very often, I'll tell you that much. Most of these RQ80 legendaries are going to be left at 1 star, and if that Audi R8 is left at 1 star, it's going to be even worse. It's going to lose everywhere to the Rezvani Beast Alpha X. So that's one thing to think about. I will try my best to rate these legendaries from a maxed out standpoint, but you need to realize that maxing out these lower RQ legendaries is very hard to do, and most people won't want to do it anyway, because if you can max out a legendary, then you're gonna max out a high RQ legendary anyway. So let's get into it. Underrated, rightly rated, overrated. Let me know down in the comments below if you are going to be interested about this series or not. We're starting off with the AC GTS and Big Block. Both of these cars are not heavily overrated in my opinion, but I think they are overrated. I think that they should not be epic, but they should not be RQ81. RQ80, both of those ACs. Their 0 to 60s are relatively strong, and their MRAs are strong as well. They're both in the 100s, and 3.3 isn't too bad for a 0 to 60 for an RQ80 or 81. That being said, what really weighs the car down, aside from the handling, and I've said this so many times, if you are an out-and-out dragster, you could have 99 handling, you could have 1 handling, it wouldn't make a difference in a straight line. That being said though, the main thing dragging the ACs down is that really low top speed. There are so many epics out there that can hit over 200 miles or 200 miles per hour. 185 is low. The MRA is good. The 0 to 60 is good. As a 1-star, these cars suck. Fully maxed out, you can probably get some value out of them, but I still think at their best powers, they're still overrated cars. Next up is the Alpha 155 GTA. I'm also going to put that at overrated. I think it should be an RQ80. If not, it will be a very, very, very strong RQ79. It'll be a Blossom Choice 79. That being said, though, 81 way too high. Once again, 102 MRI. That's really good, but the 0 to 60 sucks. The 0 to 60 sucks. The top speed sucks. It's worse compared to the ACs, even though it has really good MRI. Yes, it handles a lot better at 90, but then again, there are so many epics out there that are capable of hitting 90 as well. That being said, it doesn't help that the 155 GTA Turismo has its RQ kind of boosted because it's 4-wheel drive. Who the hell freaking cares, dude? It has slick tires. That 4-wheel drive is not going to help it anyway. So I'm going to put it in overrated. Next up is the Arash AF8. I'm gonna put that in rightly rated. I think it's okay as an RQ80. It has 97 MRA. If anything, when I look at it, it's kind of just a boosted Lingenfelter, a slightly boosted Lingenfelter. It also has 200 miles per hour for a top speed. Not the worst thing in the world, not the best thing in the world. Or you can say it's a boosted Z06 as well, the Epic Z06, because you know the MRA is better, the top speed is good. I think it's rightly rated. It's like a borderline 80, but you know it is an 80 nonetheless. Alright, moving on is the DBS Superleggera Volante, and I think that the Superleggera Volante is also rightly rated. Very similar to the Arash, it just handles a little better. It has a slightly higher top speed, and it has slightly worse MRA, but it's still very strong at 92.75. It also is a convertible, so it has that niche as well. Now, I know that the ACs have that convertible niche, but then again, they're kind of worthless, honestly. I think they're overrated. I think if you move it down to an 80, then you could argue, oh, the MK is kind of like your dragster convertible, and the DBS is like your twisty convertible. Like, that would make sense. But then the DBS isn't really a dragster or a twisty car. It's more of a hybrid. When you think about it, it gets 99 handling when you max it out, and 92 MRA, high top speed, 0 to 60, it's okay. I think it's rightly rated, not too bad. Audi R8 rear, I don't know what the RWS actually stands for. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Now, the main thing about this Audi is that the MRA on it is actually really strong, and there are not a lot of Audis that can actually hit 108 MRA. When you think about it, it actually is, you know, kind of like a modern day Zonda, as in, like, you know, the 0 to 60 is similar, top speed is similar, and the MRA is about as good as a Zonda. That being said, though, I'm actually going to put it in overrated. I think some people might disagree with me on that, but as you saw from the comparison earlier, it has nothing against the Farbout, and it trades blows against the Rezvani. I think that this would be definitely a Blossom Choice 79. Like, this would be a really, really good 79, but I think it's just a bit too weak to be an RQ80. It kind of just misses the mark a little bit. Next up are going to be these three Audi. Well, we'll actually just finish the Audis right now. Yeah, this is a tough one because you got 67 on the RS6 Avant. I mean, this thing used to be 90 freaking 5, and it used to be, I mean, honestly, the RS6 used to have 95 MRA. It used to be medium ground clearance. Now it's low, and it has 67 MRA. It's heavily overrated. I think it's seriously heavily overrated. Now the MRA nerve, that top speed is irrelevant, so I don't care if it's limited or delimited, it's still going to be crap. Next up is going to be the Audi R7 Sportback. I'm also going to give that heavily overrated. Well, actually, you know what? It's not as bad as the RS6, so I'm going to put it as overrated, but not heavily overrated. Handling still sucks. 80 MRA isn't too bad. 0 to 60 is lower. The RS6 is garbage now, honestly. Next up is the S8 Plus, and I'm going to give that heavily overrated. If I had to choose between the three Audis, I would probably choose the RS7, which is a bit ironic because back in the day, the RS7 was the weakest of the epics when these cars were all epics. Now it's the worst of the, now it's the best of the legendaries. Next up is going to be the Audi TT RS. Handling is good. 86 is not too bad. There still are epic four-wheel drives that handle about the same with 86, or even better, like the Polestar. 0 to 60 is weak. MRA is weak, 71, but the handling really does save the car. I'm gonna give it overrated. I don't think it's heavily overrated. Next up are the Bentleys, and yeah, these two are definitely heavily overrated. Those things are heavy. Their top speed mean nothing. Their handling suck. They have no MRA. They're kind of like the ACs, but worse, because at least the ACs, they've got the low 0 to 60, and they have the MRA to back it up. The Continentals, they have the low 0 to 60s, and that's it. That's it. That's it. They don't have the MRA to back it up, and they don't even have the top. I mean, they have the top speed, but it's kind of irrelevant when you don't have the MRA. So yeah, they freaking suck. Continental Super Sports as well. It's a cool picture, cool car, but it's heavily overrated. Next up is the Super Sport Convertible ISR. Now this one is a tough one because it has the worst 0 to 60 of the bunch, but handling at least is better than the other two 81s, and the MRA is actually good. So you know, unlike these Bentleys, the top speed on this Bentley is actually kind of relevant because it has 90 MRA. I'm still gonna give it overrated. I think it'll be a good 80, and I think these Bentleys should be epic, honestly, and this one should be an 80. Then I think it'll be rightly rated. So I think that Bentley is still overrated anyway. The Flying Spur. This is an interesting one. I think that it's rightly rated. Honestly, maybe even underrated. Here's the thing, it's incredibly heavy. It's not a great twisty car, but it is 4-wheel drive and medium ground clearance, so you can use it on city streets, you can use it in the dry, and you can use it in the wet. It has a relatively decent 0 to 60 of 3.6 seconds, given that this is you know, some kind of super heavy saloon medium ground clearance. Like, it has a better 0 to 60 compared to the Alpha 155, and the 155 is 4 seconds, dude, and they're the same RQ. They're both saloons, and this one's even medium. I get that this is 20 more MRA and 10 more handling, but I don't know. This is my humble opinion. I genuinely think that the Flying Spur could pass off as an 82, and I wouldn't really have any complaints. I know that there are some owners out there that think that this car is crap, but like, if you look at the Flying Spur through tunnel vision, through its, you know, niche, it's actually pretty versatile. And it's not that bad in my opinion. I wouldn't mind owning that, honestly. I'm gonna give it underrated, but very, very slightly underrated. Next up is the 330D X-Drive. I'm gonna give that... Ooh, do I give it underrated or do I give it rightly rated? I'm gonna give it rightly rated, mainly because it still is, you know, pretty heated against like the Cadillac CT6, for example. They have the same handling number. Obviously, the 330D also is medium ground clearance, 4-wheel drive standard. It is slightly better to its 60, 0 to 60. But the MRA is crap on that thing, 54. But it doesn't really matter. It's a twisty, wet car. I think it could pass off as I think it's definitely rightly rated. It might even pass off as underrated, but I'm gonna give it as a high RQ80. It's one of the better RQ80s. I'll leave it at that. Next up is the BMW, or the BMW, as some people would like to call it, the 7 Series or the LEX Drive. Now, this thing is ridiculously heavy. It's 4-wheel drive and is standard, but I think it is overrated, honestly. It handles way worse than the 330D X-Drive, and on top of that, it is also heavier. It has a slower 0 to 60 or a higher 0 to 60, although it has better MRA, but that doesn't really say much because it's a dragster anyway. I'm gonna say it's overrated, not heavily overrated, just overrated. All right, next up is the BMW M850i X-Drive convertible, and I'm gonna say that this car is heavily overrated. I think it should be an epic. I don't know why. It's RQ81. Handling isn't that good. 0 to 60 is okay. Top speed is irrelevant. I mean 80 MRA. I think it should be like at least 80. If not even 79. I think it'll be a very strong, or at least decently strong 79. When you max that thing out, I mean, remember, it's only gonna get 94 handling, which isn't that good for a 4-wheel drive car anyway. Moving on, Bristol Fighter T. I think this is underrated. I think the Bristol Fighter T is a really, really good prize car. It basically is the legendary version of the epic Bristol Fighter, and the epic Bristol Fighter is Blossom Choice. It's got a ridiculously high top speed, incredible MRA. It is a dragster that knows what it is. It is very strong at what it does, I think, and it's got a low 0 to 60. I think it is heavily underrated. That could pass off. Honestly, 83. 84 might be pushing it, but 83 for sure. I think it's heavily underrated. Cadillac CN is next, and I think that is overrated. The only thing the car really has is semi-decent MRA. Well, actually strong MRA, 104. Handling sucks. 0 to 60 is okay. I think it's just slightly overrated. It would be a fantastic 79. Cadillac CTSV is next, and I think that that is underrated. Much like how I think that the 79 ATSV is underrated. I think that should be a legendary. I think the CTSV could even go higher. Handling is great for a medium ground clearance car. Top speed is high. It is one of those prize cars that I genuinely want. I don't know, something about low RQ80 prize cars and me not having them, but them being actually good, is a trend in my garage. I don't don't have the CTSV. I don't have the Bristol. I actually genuinely wanted the Bristol Fighter. I knew a lot of people didn't really care about it because it was a low RQ price car, but honestly, I genuinely see the value in the Bristol Fighter T. I think it's a fantastic car. Next up, Copa Camaro. Yeah, that's heavily underrated, honestly. The only reason why it's 81 is because of the 64 handling, but who the hell cares? Could have one handling, I don't care. You're never gonna put it on anything of turn anyway. That thing is ridiculous. 2.2 for a 0 to 60, 180 top speed. I mean, 180 isn't the highest thing in the world, but that 0 to 60 is so much of an outlier where it deserves to be at least be 85. Next up is the Di Tommaso P72. Now, this car hasn't been out yet, but for an RQ80, it actually looks rightly rated. Handling is good, 90. That's 100 when you max it out. 0 to 60 is okay. Top speed's in 200s. It's high. Next up is the SRT Viper. I'm gonna say that this is overrated. Why that's overrated? Because the SRT 10 ACR is underrated. That's why. These two cannot be the same. These two Vipers cannot be the same RQ. That's just sacrilegious. It makes entirely no sense at all that these two are the same RQ. 3.5 to 3.4, 90 to 93. I know there's a top speed difference, but who the hell cares? Because these two are twisty oriented cars. They're still gonna lose to the Charger Hellcat in the drag. So even when they're maxed out, so there's no point putting them in the drag. They are seen as twisty or hybrid cars, and the SRT 10 ACR is just a better car in every way. So yeah, the SRT Viper is underrated. I think it would pass off as a pretty good 80, but definitely not an 81. Like, see, the P72 and the Viper, these two are very, very similar. So yeah, there you go. SRT 10 ACR is heavily underrated. That thing is ridiculously strong, dude. It used to be 80. Can you freaking believe it? And then went out to 81. I can see it as an 82. Moving on is the Ford GT. Oh, the Ford GT is an interesting one because the 0 to 60 is really, really low. Handling isn't too bad. It's not that, you know, very generic 88 that some 80 RQ legendaries will get. MRA, I mean, top speed is good. MRA is okay. 88.32, it's decent. I think it's like borderline 80. It's borderline rightly rated. But if it dropped and became a legendary, I think it'll be one of the better hybrid legendaries. But for now, I think it's a rightly rated car. It kind of gives off the same vibe as the Celine S10, but I do believe that the Celine is slightly underrated anyway, so I think both of them could pass off as 80s. Ford GTX1, I mean, it's very similar to the GT, but it just has better MRA of 100. 0 to 60 is about the same, probably slightly higher. I'm gonna give it rightly rated as well. RS200 is underrated in my opinion. That car, I mean, it's 88 handling, 4-wheel drive off-road tires. That is just ridiculously strong. Next up is the Ginetta G55 GT4. Now I gotta say that this car has impressed some people, but also disappointed many others. It's got a good MRA, it's got good handling, but the 0 to 60 for an RQ81 is atrocious. Should it be RQ80? Honestly, I don't think so. I think it's rightly rated, mainly because although the 0 to 60 is crap, the handling is really good. I think 94 is a bit too good to be RQ80, and 92 MR isn't too bad as well, but the top speed sucks. 0 to 60 sucks. I think it's just rightly rated. I'm gonna say 81. Next up, the Koenigsegg CC8S 86 MRA, 88 handling. I mean, it is very similar to the Ford GT, but it just has a slightly worse MRA, way higher top speed, and slightly worse handling. Honestly speaking though, I think that it is actually slightly overrated. I think it'll be better as an 80. I think 3.388 is kind of like your benchmark, and you need good MRA as well to be the benchmark for that RQ80, so I think it's a bit overrated. Next up are the Deltas. Now the Deltas are ridiculous, man. I think both of them are underrated. I think anything 4-wheel drive with off-road tires are just all underrated, so I'm just gonna put them all there. Whereas the Cadet, yeah, I think all these 4-wheel drive off-road tire cars are incredibly underrated. They could all pass off as 83s. I wouldn't have any excuses or debates or any, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't have any opinions, or what's the word I'm looking for? What's the thing when you say you disagree with someone in the court? Do you have any objections? That's the word I was. Got it. You just gotta think about it in the moment. I just had to think that I was in a courthouse. Okay, next up, Lancia Stratos. When I think of this car, I think of Korn. I know it's not Japanese, but this is Korn's first max legendary. Very light. MRA is decent. 85, not good, not bad. Handling is good. 89, also not that bad. 0 to 60 is low. I think that it is rightly rated. Next up, a Lotus Evora GT4. I mean, 90 MRA, 93 handling. Once again, 0 0 to 60 is pretty bad. It kind of is very similar to the G55. I'm gonna put both of them in rightly rated, honestly. Next up is the Maserati birdcage. This thing is the only thing saving it is the MRA, I believe. I think the MRA is the only thing that's like somewhat decent. Yeah, 111, so that's pretty good. 3.7 for 0 to 60 is garbage though. 3.7 used to be like the 0 to 60 of a high range epic, but obviously now their epic's getting 3.5, 3.6, sometimes even 3.4. 3.7 has become known as like a mid-range epic 0 to 60. Think BMW M3 CS at RQ74 or whatever now, you know what, or 75 or the Hellcats even. It's I think it's overrated. I don't think it's heavily overrated because the MRA is very strong and the top speed is still very high, but that 0 to 60 genuinely just weighs it down. Next up is the AMG GT4. I think that's rightly rated. Once again, it's kind of in line with these slick tire cars, so, and it's 1 RQ cheaper. Makes sense to me. Next up is the Mercedes SLS. I almost said GT3. SLS Black Series, 98 MRA, which is very strong. 90 handling, which is very good. Over 200 miles per hour when you put some upgrades into it, and a 3.5 0 to 60. I think that this car is rightly rated. No objections with that. Next up are going to the Evos. Now, I think that this Evo is rightly rated, but I think this Evo is overrated. I think that this is just bad. It's the worst Evo out of the two. I don't think they should be together. I think this has to be 80. This has to be 81. I know that this Evo is better on the drags. I've had this conversation with Corn before, but who the fuck would put this on a drag? It's a Mitsubishi Evo, for crying out loud. It has 59 MRA. Who wants to put a 59 MRA car in a drag? Besides a drag Evo or drag Mitsubishi event, this car is kind of worthless. So yeah, I think it's overrated. Next up is the Morgan Aero GT3 at RQ80. I think the only good thing about this car is the fact that it has 99 MRA. 92 handling is, relatively strong, but when you think about it, it's only going to hit 95. Most people are going to have it 1 star. The 0 to 60 on this thing is disgusting. 3.8. I genuinely think it's heavily underrated. I don't think, and it doesn't even have traction control or ABS, dude. Like, it's bad. It is a light car, and that's another, plus, but it also has a top speed of, less than 200 miles per hour. I think it's heavily underrated. I could see that as like a strong 78 or a decent 79. Next up, Nissan R390 GT1 road car. I think is rightly rated. It's a car that knows what it wants to be. It has bonkers MRA, bonkers top speed. 0 to 60 definitely is weak, but at least it has the top speed to back it up, and it, has okay handling as well. 90. Next up are the Zondas. I think both of the Zondas are rightly rated. As you saw with the comparison earlier on, I think those two cars are okay where they are. They are where they are. Oh, actually, this one is 81. I just realized. I feel like 81 is a bit too generous. 107 MRA. I mean, it's literally the same. Oh, okay. I guess the only difference is that this has traction control ABS. However, the Zonda S only has like one of the two, I think. The Zonda S the Zonda S has neither actually. So this has no traction control ABS. This is traction control ABS. Yeah, I'll give it to it. 81, sure, because I think that this car is also very strong anyway. So Zonda S, these two are basically just this. These two are the same car, literally just the same. It's just the same thing. Next up is the Porsche 911 GTS 992. 78 MRI is garbage. I mean, I cannot believe that this thing is 78 MRA. That being said though, I mean, 3.290, it's a very good hybrid car for RQ81 if you ask me. It's very low 0 to 60. I think it deserves to be 81. Porsche 911R, I also think it deserves to be 80. It is a very strong 80, 89 MRA, 92 handling, and a 3.6 0 to 60. I think that the 3.6 0 to 60 is the only thing weighing it down, but I think it is a rightly rated RQ80, especially when you compare it to this piece of shit over here. I mean, yeah, they're the same handling. This has a worse 0 to 60, better MRA though, but the top speed difference is night and day. So I think the Porsche is okay. Now next up, Porsche 911 Targa 4 GTS 991. Let me look for the MRA number on this bad boy real quick because it doesn't look very good, I'll be honest with you. Where are you on Top Drives Clubs? Why can I not find this on Top Drives Club? Is it not here? Is this car not on Top Drives? Oh, there it is. I just missed it. 80 MRA, 4.1 for 0 to 60, which is garbage. But at least 87 handling is pretty good. That being said, though, I still think it's overrated. I think it'll be a good 80, and that's about it. What isn't a good 80, though, is this 996. Now, I love my 996s to death, but this car is heavily overrated. This thing, I mean, it doesn't even have MRA. The 911 Turbo has like 76 MRA or some crap. Yeah, it does 76.53. That thing could pass off as a 77 for crying out out loud, and no one would even think that it's overrated as 76. Next up are the Macans. The Macans are alright. They handle pretty well. Now let's go with the GTS, both GTSs actually, so they're both 81. So this one here is 77 MRI, and this is 57 MRI. Now 4.8, 4.4, 82, 83, and they're both RQ81. Really? Okay, first of all, this one, the GTS, I think is underrated. I think it could pass off as an 82. The Cayenne GTS, I think, is rightly rated. Now, once again, though, I can't believe that these two are the same RQ. 44 to 48, 82 to 83. I know that this has the better MRA, but who the hell cares? They aren't dragsters anyway. So I think that the GTS is underrated. Next up is the Panamera GTS. Now, the Panamera GTS, aside from a very beautiful picture, it doesn't have MRA. 68 MRA. Handling is okay. 86 is like borderline. I want to put this in the same place as the Audi TT, and that is overrated. That being said, though, at least, you know, this is an estate. It has a slightly small advantage there. That being said, though, I still think that these two cars are overrated. So yeah, Range Rovers. Okay, both of these cars are just heavily overrated. They both suck. They are terrible. Roof Takara, I think, is rightly rated. It kind of is a legendary version of the Peking to Paris. 93 MRA, very high top speed, and handles pretty well if you're able to max it out. That's 90. That's not too bad. And last but not least is the Zenith E10R. Now, if you can max the Zenith E10R, it isn't the worst thing in the world. Still gonna lose to the KTM everywhere, but I don't want to compare it to the KTM. It doesn't seem fair. The KTM could pass off as an 80. So I think that the Zenith E10 is if it's like very barely rightly rated, or maybe just ever so slightly overrated. The handling for what it is sucks, but the 0 to 60 is strong. That's the main thing about the E10. The 0 to 60 is very, very strong. The handling sucks though. It could be it's just not even over 100. So yeah, I think it's kind of in between, you know, very slightly overrated or just barely rightly rated. I'm gonna put it in barely rightly rated just because my OCD wants to give it that final spot at the end over there. But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for today. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you're looking forward to seeing the rest of the RQs. But this is the first episode of underrated, rightly rated, or overrated with the legendaries. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back.